The hardest part about cooking is not the actual cooking, it's deciding what to cook in the first place. That's the position I'm in right now. We are having some friends around for lunch tomorrow, but I don't know what I'm cooking and I need to figure out what to cook. And I know that that's a problem, it's an issue that a lot of people have. I've had some friends talk to me about that before. They're like, oh, look, I'd like to cook for my friends. I'd like to have people around for meals more often. I just don't know what to make for them. I don't know what to cook. Like I just said, I'm needing to figure out what to cook tomorrow, but I'm not worried because I have a framework for how to make that decision, which I'm going to share with you all today. A foolproof framework for deciding what to cook. So using my actual lunch tomorrow as a bit of a case study, let's go through this framework together and learn how to decide what to cook for your friends. There are 3 tiers to this framework. There's a basic tier, a middle tier, and a high-end top tier. The basic tier is your essentials, things like numbers, how many people are you cooking for, dietary needs, if people have allergies or anything like that, budget, what you can afford, and time. How much time have you got to actually cook this meal? Those are your basics. That's the first tier, essentials. Then is the elevated tier. Some sort of higher up considerations if you're making a bit more of a thing about the meal that you're cooking. Preferences. Do you have any picky eaters, friends who are adventurous and keen on different or new foods, spice tolerance, things like that? Weather. Is it going to be really stinking hot or freezing cold? And are you going to want to make a meal based on the kind of weather that it's going to be? Serving style. Are you going to do family style dining down the middle of the table? Are you going to do a self-serve buffet off the kitchen counter? Are you going to do individual plates and carry them through for the guests? And then balance. What's the balance between the different dishes? So that's a bit of nutritional balance, but also balance around things like texture, flavor. Again, like I said, a bit of a sort of higher end consideration, but still a kind of mid-tier level. And then you've got the elaborate tier, the third tier, the top tier. Things like seasonality, what's in season at the moment, what produce is going to be cheapest and at its best. Presentation and decor, how are you going to present the food? Are you going to decorate? Are you going to have nice table settings or not? Occasion or a theme, is there a particular reason that you're having these friends around for dinner? Do the dishes and the decorations need to reflect that theme, or do you want them to reflect that theme? And then there's a delight factor. Do you want the meal to delight or surprise people in a particular way? Someone's favorite food or a really nice dessert, a signature cocktail. To what extent is it important for you that this meal has a delight factor? Those are the 3 tiers. And like I said, you can mix and match a little bit. You know, if you wanted to do a basic essential tier weeknight dinner, but the weather was crazy, then maybe drag the weather option from the elevated tier down to the essentials tier. If you just really like decorating and cooking food for a theme, but you want to keep it basic and you like doing that, do it. That's really cool. But I think that the important thing is you don't feel like you have to. If you just want to keep what's in the essentials tier and be like, all right, I'm working out my numbers, my dietary needs, my budget, and my time, that's perfect. That's all you really need to cook a meal. The other things are just tools that you can pick and choose as you would like to use them to help you work out what kind of food you're going to be making. So let's work through this for my own lunch that I'm cooking tomorrow. Numbers. How many people do we have coming over tomorrow? We've got 8 adults coming over tomorrow, plus my wife and I and our toddler. So that's 10 and a half mouths to feed. Dietary needs. We do have some dietary needs. So 2 of our friends are pregnant, which comes with its own set of dietary needs. And 2 of our friends are celiac as well. So we need to be very careful about making sure that nothing we're making has got gluten in it. Budget. What can we afford? I'm willing to spend a little bit of money on this lunch, but I'm not going to have it be an objective numerical thing. I'm going to vibe it a bit. And I think that's going to depend on you and what your own finances is for what constitutes a basic meal versus an elaborate meal. I think that's going to be different on a case-by-case basis for you and your friends. Time available. How much time do I have? Well, it's Saturday morning currently, and they're coming for Sunday lunch. So I could do something overnight. Otherwise, I'll have a couple of hours in the morning. I've got a decent amount of time, not all the time in the world, and it's the weekend and I want to have some time with the family still, so I don't want to dedicate all my time to cooking. So that's everything in the essentials tier. That's needed, right? And I've said that I want it to be elevated, so I'm thinking about things like preferences that I know. So because I'm celebrating the first week of my wife's new job, I'm particularly wanting to make sure that her preferences are met. She didn't have a specific request. She just said something with meat. So that's what I'm going to go off. Something with meat. Weather, it's going to be 21 Celsius and sunny. That's kind of could be anything weather. So not particularly helpful for putting things in a box, but it does give me options. So I guess that's not a bad thing. Serving style. Choosing a serving style, I think, depends on the space you're cooking in. For us, 10 adults is like the max our combined living dining room can fit. We can't all sit at the dining table together. I imagine the best way to do it is going to be for us to put it buffet style on the table in the corner of the room. People can grab some food and come sit on the chairs. So buffet style kind of is the best way to do it, I think. Balance. Yeah, I want to have a nice balance. So as I think about what I'm going to cook, I want to keep that in mind, that I want a good balance of foods. Elaborate tier, do I want to pull any of that down? Seasonality, presentation, occasion, delight. I like the idea of the delight factor, I think, just because it is a celebration, something that might make my wife particularly happy or excited. That's the framework that I've put tomorrow's meal through. I'm feeding 10 and a half people. 2 of them are pregnant, 2 of them are celiac. I'm willing to spend a little bit of money, and I've got a bit of time to do it. It's going to be something with meat. The weather's kind of irrelevant. I want it to have a nice balance and something delightful and celiac friendly as part of it. That's where we're at now. You might be thinking, okay, well, that's not super helpful because it still doesn't give us something to cook. And that's true, but it does put a fence around what we can choose. And I think that's the important part, is to say that you don't have an infinite amount of dishes you can cook. You've got a limited amount of dishes you can cook. There are kind of parameters in place now for me to choose. Now, the second part of this framework, and it's kind of connected, but it's really a tool that you can use if you want. It's not necessary, it's more of a prompter for you, is the actual choice making. Now that I've got all of this stuff, how do I make the choice? And I think that's going to be different for each individual. Maybe you've got something in mind that you already want to cook. And that's one way you can use the framework, right? If you've got a meal in mind already, you can put that meal through the framework and then adapt it as such. For me, I'm using the framework as the starting point, working out what are the parameters that I'm going to be working in, and then use those parameters to help me choose the meal. So here are some options that you've got for how to now pull the trigger and make the decision. Cravings. What are you really feeling like? What can you imagine yourself eating that feels right or good, or that you're excited about? Something comes to mind for you. What have you got in your pantry that you need to use that you could serve as a foundation for the meal? In a similar vein to that, is there something on special at the supermarket that you could buy? Is there a particular hero ingredient that you want to use in this meal? That's the kind of idea where you choose a piece of food to start with and build something around that. Do you have a special request? Could you ask your friends and say, hey, I'm cooking food for you. Is there anything you want? The other option is to look online for inspiration. Instagram, Pinterest. You've maybe got some social media recipes you might have saved somewhere that you can go back and look through. Pick one of those out for some inspiration. You could think about a category of food. Do I want to cook pasta? Do I want to cook curry? Or do you have a safe dish? Is there a signature dish that you have that you know you're good at making? You just need to put it within the parameters of this framework to make it work. That's the other option as well. So, out of all this, I now need to make my own choice and work out what it is that I'm cooking tomorrow. My camera, unfortunately, turned off at this point, but that's probably for the best since I can just explain my decision making as I show you what I cooked. I used a few of these choice making options to get to this final decision. My wife had requested meat, and a go-to safe dish for me, especially when I'm feeding a group, is slow cooked meat. Then as some random inspiration, I remembered I'd recently been looking at some holiday photos from a couple years ago, which included a photo of some food we'd eaten at a small restaurant, which just did slow-cooked meat and a bunch of side dishes. So at this point, I decided to go with slow-cooked lamb and a couple of sides. I already had some broccoli and pumpkin in the fridge, so decided to use those as the base for a couple of different salads. And I also decided to add a rice pilaf into the mix for good measure. And all this fit nicely into the parameters I'd worked out from going through the framework. Not to forget the delight factor from the elaborate tier, I decided to make my wife's favorite cake, a pistachio cardamom cake that can easily be made gluten-free, which was good for our celiac friends. And there you have it. A spiced yellow rice pilaf with sultanas and pistachios, spiced slow-cooked lamb with some herbs and a fig glaze, a roast pumpkin quinoa rocket salad with feta and dates, and a broccoli smashed chickpea salad with some cashew dukkha. Now, I didn't use a recipe for any of the main course, but if you are keen to try and cook this yourself, let me know, and I'd be happy to try and write up a description in the comments, or at least give some tips for the different dishes. Also, if there are any other barriers or issues which you have when deciding what to cook that weren't addressed by this video, let me know in the comments. I'd be more than happy to make a Framework 2.0 or suggest some different approaches which you could try. There is, however, one part of this process which is, I think, going to be universal for everybody, which is step 1. Invite your friends around for dinner.